It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. Good morning, ladies or gentlemen. Gary, welcome to Friday. How are you?
Well, I'm okay, but the scuttlebutt is that Hitler is really ticked off in hell because he believes that Democrats are watering down his evilness.
Yeah, that would be a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, if you think about it, they really are.
Well, if everybody is Hitler, there'd be nobody left on the planet.
Right. Everybody in the GOP is Hitler. We know that. I mean, according to the left.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, well, except now the Cheneys. Or maybe they're still Hitler, but they have a special pass. I don't know how it works. Saw the story in the New York Post where Kamala Harris had to reach out to Hillary.
What do I do?
How to deal with losing to Donald Trump. Why don't you call Donald Trump? He'll tell you. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, can you imagine? I guess I'll call Hillary and find out how she did it. We already know. She said she cried for 3 days. She didn't cry. With all the things that went on with her husband, she didn't cry once. Losing to Trump, she cried for 3 days.
Oh, my gosh. I saw that. And I burst out laughing when I saw that. I went, well, for what? It's the Losers Club.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so the New York Post had, I mean, it's the paparazzi, right? They're back in California, Kamala Harris and her husband, and they're grocery shopping. And so, which I don't know where to go on that. Is it a weird photo op that nobody would have really done? I mean, that's not politically, it doesn't serve you at all. Or do they just not have anybody that's willing to go shopping for them?
I saw that, yeah. And they had plastic bags.
Yeah.
You saw that, right?
Yeah, I saw plastic bags and the whole thing. And, of course, the young Frankenstein moment came to mind. You need help with the bags. And then somebody answers, yeah, you get the vice president, I'll get her husband. And
well, it did relate to me. I mean, I know it's a weird relating thing, but, with the football playoffs, the AFC and NFC championship this weekend, and me being a Bills fan, first off, I am wearing my good luck charm, as you see here.
Right.
Last week, you weren't here. I wore my Forrest Gump, number 44 red jersey.
All right. Yeah.
But this week, I had to pull out all the ammunition, so I have my number 33 Polk High Bundy official football jersey on. But I was thinking about whenever the Bills get to this far in the playoffs, you start thinking about the Goo Goo Dolls and who are from Buffalo, and their song on Broadway. Their song on Broadway was George Benson.
Yeah,
Broadway.
I think the Drifters did it first. Yeah.
But Broadway, which is the bars on Broadway,
right?
And the classic line, "It always rains like hell on the Losers' Day parade." Well, when you hear that lyric, you go, "Oh, the Bills." And then I was thinking with the whole loser thing, the Loser Club. Welcome to the Loser Club. I just
exactly.
But it's just, to me, it's, I don't know how that gets reported. In the liberal media, they're going to make it like a sympathetic thing. Oh, she lost too. And
it's my first thought was apparently she is burdened by what has been. I mean, because I don't see myself, look, for me, it would be, all right, everybody'd be calling me, that my friends and family, sorry you lost, and good luck. What are you going to, my mom would be, well, what are you going to do now for a living? this kind of thing. But I don't think I'd be calling anybody to ask them advice. What does that, by the way, what does that say about her husband? Because the first thing I would do is talk to my wife. We would have a conversation, and which, it's like we always do about life, things that happen. It's like, excuse me, honey, I'm going to go call Hillary Clinton instead of talk to you about this whole thing.
See, for me, I have failed so much in my life that I never call anybody when I fail. I call people when I win, going, I don't know how to handle this. So what do I do? I'm kidding.
Well, if the Bills win the Super Bowl, you're going to call everybody and go, "Did they cheat?" It's so it's going to be very unlike most of your life.
But I always did like that. Not just when you lose, but I always loved the concept when it's like they were so successful they didn't know how to handle it.
Right.
And I always viewed that, and I said, I'll never have any problem with that. Every day. And you and I talked about this, and again, I could technically have retired 3 years ago. How old am I now? Yeah. 3 years ago
you must be in your 80s. I don't know.
Would have been my normal retirement age. So I went a lot further than I ever thought I would. I never thought I'd still be. When I got into this business in my 20s, I never thought ever that I'd still be in it.
Yeah.
Past retirement age.
Right.
So, but you and I have talked about this before. The way you succeed in this business is the repetition in your mind that it all could end in a week.
Right.
It's all going to end. This is the last show.
Right. Yeah.
That mentality that you better be prepared for the next thing. And then when you do that your entire life, it just becomes there isn't any panic about it. It's just a normal process. And that's not the case. I mean, we have contracts now and everything else. It's not the case. But, back then in the beginning, I guess that comes from, a part of, from my dad and my mom, and but also being a Boy Scout. Be prepared. You're always prepared. You're always prepared. Mm-hmm. And so you're always prepared for the worst. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean that you're worried about it.
You hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
And to me, that's always been so. In this business, 99.9% of people except you probably have to go around the country with, trying to find that next job with little money.
Yeah.
And you're struggling. But I remember one of the key moments of my life, and I remember when I was working in Fort Walton Beach, Pensacola, Florida, in radio, and I got let go. And I actually got let go. This is how crazy. You want to know how crazy this business is? Jim Acosta, if he's gone from CNN, is not going to be for the same reason that I lost that job. And when I worked in Fort Walton Beach, Pensacola, I went in. They said, we're going to let you go, the general manager. I said, why? And they said, because you took us to number one, and you're going to ask for a big raise, and we don't want to pay you for it. Mm-hmm. I actually got fired for that, and it wasn't just my show. I was the program director, and they said, I never forget going to unemployment. Well, why are they letting you go? Because I succeeded too well. And he goes, come on. I go, call him. He came back the next week. They go, wow. So, but I remember going for my next job in Marshall, Texas. And I'd gone to my interview, and I had already put down my deposit for my apartment that had the cockroaches. I didn't know it at the time, or not, the cockroaches in the refrigerator and the fire ants coming up through the floorboard. And I was coming out of Jackson, Mississippi with everything that I owned in my 1980 Pontiac Sunbird, everything, which meant my huge speakers and my receiver and my turntable and my cassette deck and everything else. And I remember I was outside of Jackson, Mississippi, and I had a credit card with I had nothing on it, so I probably had $1,000 credit limit, and probably, I don't know, less than $500 to my name. And I remember how happy I was.
Mm-hmm.
I remember looking at the new adventure and saying to myself, and that would have been 1984, the fall of 1984. And I remember saying to myself, if you're happy now in this particular situation,
and you know it, clap your hands.
And you know it, clap your hands. Exactly. Well, but that was the philosophy that and so I always said, no matter what, because you get to a certain level of success, and I think people want to just protect that instead of going for it, always having that aggressiveness. And I always said, I'm not just going to settle. I'm always going to be aggressive. And so, I mean, those are some of the things that I've always thought of. So losing or winning to me was always just
it's part of it. It's factored in.
It's factored in. It's the same level. And that's one thing. And you and I have talked about this. One of the great things about getting older and still being in a profession like this is when we go on vacation, and you and I have talked about this, it's like, okay, going on vacation. There is no, when vacation is over, I got to go back to work again. I got to go back to work. And that I used to have that even in radio and definitely in my other jobs. Man, I was on vacation. Now I got to go back to work again. And everything is the exact same. It's level. There's like a consistency of contentment. And that to me is the most wonderful thing in the world.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think anything can beat that.
Yeah, I had a job offer one time. It was actually out of New York, and they said, the programmer said, look, we're going to bring you up, before you begin, we're going to bring you up. We're going to have Eric Harley Day, and I kind of chuckled and didn't really take it seriously, and then I called and I was making arrangements to fly up there, and so the office manager was like, we're pretty excited about Eric Harley Day, and I was like, oh, they're serious. They're going to have Eric Harley Day. I declined the job because Eric Harley Day sounded boring. It's like, I don't want to attend Eric Harley Day. That's the thing. I don't want to do that. I just thought to myself, man, if you guys are putting that much into it, maybe not. And I just remember over the years, frankly, the real reason is I'm not going to leave Texas. It's radio requires you to move. I mean, everybody in radio, you got to move, but you got to move. Well, I did. I moved from one town in Texas to another town in Texas.
Right.
And which is a very fortunate move if you know how this business works. Everybody eventually has to move. You got to move away from home.
As I did. East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, South. I mean, I've been all over the place. But you sit there and you look at it and you say, is that, my first thing is, I need to go and I need to talk to Hillary about how to handle this. What are you talking about? You can go out tomorrow, and she could make probably $50,000 to probably $100,000 a speech if she can speak.
Well, the thing is, I would pay to listen to one of her speeches because I want to know what the rambling is all about. It's like,
well, no, but you can. I mean, you just when you reach that particular level, money's not going to be a problem.
Public speaking, a book. Whatever.
A book,
and the book is usually a ghostwriter. It's somebody who's going to shadow you for, however long. In her case, probably an hour, and then they're going to write the book and write your story.
But the speaking's easy. You go to friendly audiences because that's the only people that want to hear from you.
That's the only people that are going to hire you.
Right, exactly. But you can have a great living. It's like move on to the next thing. If she wants advice of politics, stop gaslighting in line and actually have an opinion, actually hold a political opinion that the public agrees with.
Yeah, I think if there is a photo op and them going shopping for groceries, I mean, unless it is true that nobody really wants to do their shopping for them, it's always a photo op. And if there's a photo op, I'm guessing her people wanted, look, let's get you out there. You didn't win, but you're not out. You're still going to be visible, blah, 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 blah. I would expect a television interview, not long from now. I don't know when it'll be, but it won't be long. And it's what you do, because remember, they said, a couple of the liberals, well, don't count her out. She's not done. Yeah, okay.
Did you hear what Carville said? My gosh, we could just
I know.
We just go from one topic to the other. But hey, we like starting with the conversation. He said nobody wants to hear from Biden.
Yeah.
Nobody
No.
wants it. If the Democrats want to forget about him, they don't want him around. They don't want, and I would say the same thing for Kamala.
Yeah.
Because this is the one problem. When you lose, you'll always be viewed as a loser.
Exactly.
Once you lose that election, Trump is an anomaly.
Right.
He really is.
And like Hillary, she's a multiple-time loser. She had to drop out in 2019 ahead of the 2020 election season in the primary. And, she lost to Trump in 24. So, she couldn't even be anointed. So, yeah, that's going to be a problem.
We got a great show ahead. 86690 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Starting and charging system-related issues are one of the most common causes of winter breakdowns. So when your batteries talk, it's important you listen. Knowing the warning signs that could indicate your electrical system needs attention can help you avoid getting stuck out in the cold this winter. Have your electrical system checked by a certified technician if your vehicle begins to shut down electrical loads like radios and cab lights while in operation. This is a surefire sign that you're experiencing low battery voltage, and continuing to run in these conditions can lead to additional electrical systems shutting down.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Coming up on the show, did you see those two former Politico reporters talking about that in the run-up and with the laptop story? They were told, don't mention it.
Right. Yeah, don't bring it up.
They wanted to write stories on it. They said, nope.
I'd love to see how many other liberal, I don't want to call them news organizations, activist media organizations actually had that mandate, from the top. I'm sure they weren't the only ones. We knew it. We knew, look, there has to be a couple of reporters out there going, come on, we got to do something on this. Nope, you can't do that. You look at the work of Miranda Devine over at the New York Post, stellar work. But that probably was another thing. It wasn't just that it would hurt the Biden campaign at the time and eventually administration, that you couldn't be seen as taking a New York Post story, and then making it legitimate. Remember everything they did to the New York Post on social media. I mean, shutting them down and everything else. So you couldn't, if you were in the liberal activist media, other media, you couldn't do that. I found it kind of funny. Elon Musk several hours ago posted, if I see one more damn Nazi salute in my feed, I'm going to lose my mind. This algorithm sucks. It's brilliant. But I mean, you look at the narrative that was, and by the way, he's making fun and also making a serious point in that, look, it'll come back on him. This is whatever's happening and all this stuff. The algorithm works the way the algorithm works. And he talked about, the community notes. He said, I don't turn it off on my account. I get a ton of requests by high-profile individuals. Will you turn it off on my account? No. And, that's where you are. But in liberal activist media, including, these couple of reporters at Politico saying that they couldn't do the story they wanted to do. Well, of course, we all know that. We all know there is, there are not just talking points. There's a culture that is in place, but also at the top. We're not going to do this. Sorry, we're not going to do this. Axios, one of the co-founders, you are not the media. And just a month before he said that, they did a whole piece at Axios. Well, regular people are the media. They're doing their own reporting these days.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. You see Brennan scrambling yesterday? John Brennan?
Yeah.
You know where he doesn't have a point that people really haven't brought up. Because he said that Trump has misrepresented the facts in the executive order because it said that we had suggested that the Hunter Biden laptop story was Russian disinformation. No, we said it was one of the hallmarks of Russian information operations. Here's the point. If somebody comes to me and says, there's a laptop that says this, and I'm in the intelligence business, do I make any conclusion on it?
No. Certainly not to the point, I wouldn't, to the point of signing a document with a bunch of others.
Right. And when Biden came out, what was it, 2 days later, and said this letter shows that it was Russia disinformation, did Brennan say, no, it didn't?
Nope. No.
And so that's the point right there. You see the story that the laptop, now the FBI knew at that point what it was. They knew at that point that it wasn't Russia disinformation. They didn't say anything about it.
Nope.
And any of those 51, it shows you, this is what scares the hell out of me, the fact that people that are supposedly, quote, the intelligence, the experienced intelligence people would come out and say, well, this has all the hallmarks of Russia disinformation. You don't know that.
Yeah, you
You
don't.
have no idea.
Right.
You don't know. You came to you sent it in a different direction. You didn't come out and say, this could be totally legitimate and it could be hunters, or it might be Russia disinformation or disinformation from someone else.
We don't know what
we don't know what it is.
That's your conclusion is we don't know.
Right. That's the only conclusion as an intelligence person, because as an intelligence person, what are you doing? You're gathering intelligence to come to a conclusion.
That's right.
Or a particular theory.
All you do is you bring the pieces of the puzzle. In that situation, there's no way you put that puzzle together. I am convinced that some of them that were on some of that 50, some of the group of 51 knew what they were dealing with and were lying about it.
Well, they knew it was political. They knew that, they knew that, what was it? Who was it? I got my Blinken. Blinken is the one who started it.
Yeah.
Some of them knew that's where it came from. It came from Blinken.
Right.
He's the one that started the entire thing, so they knew it was political at that particular point. So the key is, there's two keys here. You do not make a statement, a public statement on something. For example, if police are investigating a murder and they have no evidence whatsoever, and they go out to the public and say, well, this murder is the hallmark of a mob hit from this mob. Well, based on what? Based on things they've done before, which is what? Well, we can't get into that. And you leave it at that. Intelligence is about information, about coming to conclusions on information and evidence that you acquire. They had no information. They had no intelligence on this particular incident. So don't give me this crap that, you knew exactly what you were doing. And when Biden came out in the debate and said, absolutely, the 51 intelligence agents have said this, you didn't deny it. Well, you didn't come out and say, that isn't true. We didn't say that.
This is a very Fauci-esque answer with the back and forth, Fauci and Rand Paul on gain of function.
Yeah,
we don't call it a gain of function. Well, we never said it was this. We never, with it, that's not what we, you knew what you were doing. You knew what the goal was. The timing of it, You guys, you 51 of you didn't just call each other going, hey, did you hear from the other guys in the group? No. Hey, because we're just all getting together. We're all just hanging out, texting each other. And we just came to the conclusion. No, it was organized for a reason. And what was that reason? To help Biden politically.
Biden. Yep.
And you know that. Which, by the way, his response to this whole thing is further proof that he shouldn't have any clearance.
I love the story. Brennan, I can't help the Trump administration if I don't have access to it. It's like
Sure can.
Oh my
That's
God,
the point.
Social media just blew up saying,
Stay out
does
of it.
anybody believe that Trump would go to Brennan
Right. Yeah.
for his expertise on anything?
Right. He shows up at the Trump White House. I'm here. Help Trump. Are you kidding me? When's the last time the words help Trump came out of your mouth, Brennan? We know. We know what all of you guys are about. Every time he gets called out, well, that wasn't. Remember the one time he actually said it on the air at CNN. Well, I guess my intel was bad.
Yeah.
Dude, you were the head of intel at one time. Your intel was bad. Oh, my bad.
What was that about the laptop?
I forget what it was. Was it the laptop? I'm not sure. But it was a huge thing.
But he had no intel.
None.
They admitted they had no intel.
Well, and then
it was
you go on, whether you go on CNN or anywhere else, and or you're signing a document saying, yeah, we think. Well, no, you don't know. Why are you talking? If somebody in the intel community, especially a former CIA director, if they're going to be out there talking about things, you talk about your experience or maybe the process, but they couldn't have that. I mean, Brennan couldn't have that, of course, and others. No, we've got to be political activists, which is something he's always been. And, there's really no way around that. There's no way around that. And for him, he's okay with it. And then when he gets called out, well, I can't believe Trump didn't. Yeah. Bye. See ya. You shouldn't have had your clearance for as long as you did.
Well, after Biden said it, when Biden came out in the debate and said, no, absolutely, the 51 said this was Russia disinformation.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody came out and said, no, it's not.
Nope.
That's the only information. Well, Trump maybe has more information now as president.
Well, we may learn a lot of things.
But at that point, when he has, when he said it and when he continues to say it, well, that's what Biden said.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever came and said Biden's wrong on that.
Right.
None of the 51 ever came forward and said, look, we didn't say that. Biden was wrong in the debate last night.
Right.
We need to get ahead of this because we need to protect our reputations. Mm-hmm. We didn't say that. That never happened.
Nope, it did not. But, again, this is the kind of liberal activist response you get from people like him, people like Fauci. They're just going to run around circles like, and then the virtue signaling. Well, I wouldn't be able to help Trump. Shut up.
Yeah, I love the whole gang of function.
Yeah.
Gain of function.
Well, it could have been a gang of function.
Well, it's not because we might have changed the definition of gain of function.
Well, then at the end, when stuff starts to come out, more and more starts to come out. Well, it's we didn't. I mean, and then they go into the Fauci. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, some mistakes were made. Yeah. No, you were the hero propped up by the left the moment that you were no longer active in that role. And for part of the time that you were active. And you wanted to be the hero. He had that weird smile that John Bolton had when John Bolton released his book on Trump. This is who they are. We got to, we're going to come out. We're going to do the damage. We're going to be the media heroes. John Bolton, it's a fact that I'm probably making up, but it's a fact that he never once smiled in his life before he released his book. Not even once. And he had this weird smile.
Now you're going to put me on a search for...
Did John Bolton
ever smile?
Yeah, before his book release. It's, and Fauci, the same thing, It was, at first it was, all business, and then he gets adored and propped up by the liberal media. What?
First thing that comes up.
He's holding his book?
No, he's laughing. His mouth is wide open. Yeah. He's like, ah. Yeah. Like this. It's like, where did they get that from?
Yeah, that may be from that book release thing that he was doing. I forget, it was a sit-down interview. I know they were doing pictures and the whole thing. But, I mean, there are when he was releasing his book, it was all smiles.
Well, this was in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Former U.S. Ambassador to United Nations John Bolton shares a laugh in Hilton Head, South Carolina, with Marines in 2012. So he did smile and laugh at least 12 years ago.
Yeah, before then. Maybe because he knew he was planning the book. But clearly. But, and Liz Cheney still hasn't smiled. I don't think she will. We have an office pool going.
She may never smile again.
Yeah, she won't smile
again.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. But, yeah, when the Brennan thing, it was like, give me a break. And it was like, they expect that the American public is stupid.
Yeah, they do.
We said it had the hallmarks. Based on what?
Yeah, based on what?
Based on what?
And what does that mean? What does that explain to us? Plain English that for us. Hallmarks of it. I mean, we know.
Well,
what
it
means. But why you think it has the hallmarks?
The interpretation, when you look at it, because people mentioned the Politico magazine that a lot of people reprinted and used. The Politico talks about the fact that no, it was Russia disinformation. Mm-hmm. That headline came out, and then Biden did it a couple of days later.
Right.
And nobody said we didn't say that.
Right.
So don't give us this crap. He's trying to be sly. Okay, let's really imply that he did it without actually saying he did it. Mm-hmm. And then when everybody says, the media starts parroting, that it's Russia disinformation, we'll just be quiet. We won't come out and say you're wrong at that. Don't try to be slippery on it, because all you did was let us know that we were right. You aren't a good intelligence operative if you take zero information and intelligence and you throw out any type of conclusion.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean,
because the only conclusion was, if you were asked, you go, I don't know.
When you said slippery, it's exactly it. And that's what I think of when I think of Fauci. The back and forth with Rand Paul.
Yeah.
I mean, a classic example, well, that's not a gain of function. We see gain of, like he's some kind of, like he's David Blaine, a magician who's like, yeah, well, that's like, and let me ask you, is this your card? It's not, he thinks he's playing a game here. He thinks and he was. For him in his mind, he thinks he can talk circles around Rand Paul. And we give a lot of credit to Rand Paul in that regard with that issue, because he did stay on it. We talked about how we would, push on different things and ask a couple of questions a little differently. But he did a great job in getting Fauci up there,
right?
To testify.
Well, what we would have said is basically, in a generic way, I don't care how you define gain of function, because
did you manipulate the virus?
Right. Did you manipulate a virus so it could jump to humans?
Exactly. Yes or no?
Forget about how you wish to label it, and he didn't do that. We said he needed to do that because he could still go on and say, well, we changed the definition. We changed the definition.
Exactly.
We don't give a damn whether you change the definition. Did you do this?
Right. We don't care if you call it planting flowers.
And now the consensus is, yeah, that's what they did.
Yeah, exactly.
With U.S. government money, and then the Biden administration attempted to hide it.
Exactly.
Well, they succeeded in hiding it for a while.
Yeah, they did. They did.
866-90-RED-I.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-I on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Oh, wow. Some polling that was done by Rasmussen that we got to tell you about the president's favorability.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
It really is. You know, you and I were looking at some of the polling that was done, the one poll by the New York Times on the radical transgender movement, and to see that almost 80% now believe that men shouldn't be playing women's sports. That's the highest I've ever seen it.
Yeah.
I've never seen it that high. You know, there is a momentum in the other direction, but the momentum is not based. The momentum is not based on trying to bully you into believing a lie.
Right. Exactly.
There's a momentum saying, okay, what's the truth?
Right.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. I'm reading from Jonathan Turley. With the fake outrage against Elon Musk, any doubt was denounced as evidence that you're a Nazi as well. So when the Anti-Defamation League stated that it was just an awkward gesture, it was effectively declared soft on Nazis by AOC. And then, I was just reading that. He tweeted that out, and he's got a whole article on it. But then, you know, we had said the same thing. You know, you're not gonna win this.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when you lie, the more you attempt to defend a lie, the more that people know that you're lying.
Yeah.
And so when it came out yesterday, you saw that Netanyahu defended Elon Musk going, what are you talking about?
Right.
You know, this this guy is, you know, great supporter of the Jewish people, great supporter of Israel. I went, well, I can hear the next thing now. Netanyahu's a Nazi. You're a Netanyahu Nazi now.
Right.
It's
Exactly. No, I mean, but they really do. They go that far. They honestly don't. Someone like AOC has zero critical thinking skills, but she doesn't care. You know, talking the other day about how people will be deported if they commit crimes. Can you believe it? Everybody's looking around going, wow, she's finally realizing what we're doing. I mean, it was, but this is, everything for them really is about the name calling. It has to be about, we've got to label them as this. We got to label them as this. And it's the biggest joke. I don't know how they don't see everybody else laughing. It's like they're standing in the room. You know, Biden used to say, no, I'm serious. No, serious. No joke. He used to say that all the time. But apparently they don't realize, yeah, it is a joke.
Netanyahu responded to an Elon Musk a post on X a couple of days ago where Elon Musk said the radical leftists are really upset that they had to take time out of their busy day praising Hamas to call me a Nazi. And Netanyahu responded, Elon Musk is being falsely smeared. Elon is a great friend of Israel. He visited Israel after the October 7th massacre in which Hamas terrorists committed the worst atrocity against the Jewish people since the Holocaust. He has since repeatedly and forcefully supported Israel's right to defend itself against genocidal terrorists and regimes who seek to annihilate the one and only Jewish state. So really, I really was yesterday, because once you take it to a certain point, you might as well just go further on it.
Yeah, right.
And so I was really expecting, because when the ADL came out and said, no, come on, let's stop this foolishness here. And then she, in a soft way, said, okay, they're going soft on Nazis now.
Right.
I mean, it's just, it's like, okay, Netanyahu, I was like, I can just see the Democratic Party. Are you a part of the Netanyahu Nazi group?
Yeah, exactly.
Because you just get to the point of complete absurdity, and maybe they decided, okay, we're not going to go that far.
Mm-hmm.
But you talked about the whole, AOC and illegal immigration.
Mm-hmm.
This is Bill Maloogian responded to NBC 10 in Boston. New development. There are growing concerns over potential ICE raids in Massachusetts after federal agents were seen entering homes in East Boston on Wednesday and taking multiple people into custody. Bill Maloogian responds to that because he's with ICE. He's following them on the raids.
Yeah, right, yeah.
He said, I am curious what concerns there would be over the following being removed from the streets by ICE Boston yesterday. 2 MS-13 gang members, one of which had an Interpol red notice warrant for aggravated murder. Haitian gang member with 17 convictions. Multiple alleged rapists, including one who held a gun in a woman's mouth during the crime. A Dominican charged with heroin trafficking. A Salvadoran man charged with rape. A Haitian man charged with sexual assault. These are not children. He responded to NBC 10 on that one.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. If the liberals running these blue cities can't get in front of ICE on these raids and things like this, which we wondered before Inauguration Day, we were wondering, okay, what are they going to do? How far are they willing to go to block ICE? Well, if they can't get that done, then they're going to rely on the liberal activist media to lie and tell a false story. And that will be the case. We've seen it before. They're not going to change. They're not changing. They aren't changing.
Well, every single one of them in the Senate voted for no medical treatment for
a baby that survives abortion.
A baby that survives abortion.
Yeah.
Every single one of them.
Yeah.
That's how radical they are. There are no moderates.
No.
In the House, you may have 2.
Yeah.
But you think about this week. This was really an important week. You and I said, I think the response a day after, maybe it was a week after the election, and we said there's no indication that the Democrats are going to change at all.
Yeah.
It is clear there is no indication at all that they plan on moderating at all. None.
Yeah, they won't. They won't. They won't. And the liberal activist media is not going to. They'll lie.
No.
They'll make it up.
And they are responsible. When you think about it, they don't want to think about it, but because of what they did, they're responsible for the resurrection of Trump.
Yeah, they don't see that either. I don't know how they don't see that. We talked about it with Alvin Bragg and Jack Smith and creating the martyr thing. And they didn't see it, or they saw it and didn't care. But they're part of it too. When you lie like this, when you throw out Hitler, 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 when you're doing all of these things, and then the media, a few of them in the liberal activist media in December, well, we don't know how we missed Joe Scarborough, of all people. I don't know how he didn't see it about Biden's cognitive issues. I mean, I don't know. You went on the rant. You were defending him, and you told people, F you if you can't handle the truth. That was you. That was you, Joe, who said that. Again, the Fauci-esque answer. Well, my bad. I didn't know gain of function would do that. I mean, we call it gain of function. What did I know? I mean, this is who they are. They don't care about anyone. They don't care about anyone. Get Trump at every turn. It's not over. We warned you. We said when Inauguration Day comes, don't think that everything is drastically going to change overnight. Well, we're learning more and more, and for many, if not most of them, it's not going to change at all, ever. They got it handed to them in November. They don't care.
Because this week, again, the Nazi stuff, to the point where it's not, it used to be people would get angry, if you called them a Nazi.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Now it's a joke.
Right.
I mean, it's a joke. Nobody takes it seriously. I did see something I think you said the other day. I don't know if it was you, maybe it was you, maybe it was me, I don't know. But it was like calling somebody Nazi is just crying wolf now.
Yeah, I called it crying Nazi.
Crying Nazi, yeah. And
they're crying Nazi.
Everybody,
that's all they're doing.
And everybody, now it's a joke.
Yeah.
But we joke about it.
Right.
You can joke about somebody being called Nazi because the Democrats, like I started out the show with today, Hitler is in hell and he's furious because they've really diluted the evilness of being a Nazi.
Right.
And he's ticked off.
Right, exactly. Which is exactly what they have done.
And so it doesn't mean anything because you using that label is not based on any reality at all.
Nope.
None.
Nope.
And the public knows it, and you just keep doubling down on it, doubling down on it, doubling down on it.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's the vote that the Senate took, where every single Democratic senator voted for no medical assistance for an aborted baby that's born alive. You think about it, that's like, wow.
Yeah.
That's just unbelievable to only two Republicans, two Democrats voting to not allow, or to allow, voting, only two Democrats voting to say men should not be playing women's sports and shouldn't be in women's locker rooms and women should have their privacy.
Yeah.
They're still as radical as they've ever been. This is the most radical the Democratic Party has ever been. They have seen the huge losses. Look at this here, the Rasmussen reports yesterday. This blew my mind. The favorability based on demographics. Are you ready? And the headline is Trump approval currently has no racial demographic signal. There's no difference in how the different demographics view Trump. Are you ready? All right. The approval rating for Trump from whites, 55%. The approval rating from blacks, 57%. The approval rating for Trump from Hispanics and others, 58%. Trump has a higher approval rating right now, according to Rasmussen, and they're a credible outlet. Trump now has more support from blacks, Hispanics, and minorities than whites.
Wow.
People have looked at it and said, stop lying.
I think that's it.
Stop.
Well, and you mentioned the two Democrats in the House, on when it comes to protecting women's sports, Cuellar and Gonzalez. And they had different, I think each of them had different positions before. Their constituents in Texas, huge Latino-based constituents, said, no, we don't want this. This is where we talk about the awakening of the rank and file of the everyday Americans. They're done with this kind of behavior, and the left doesn't see it. The left isn't done. They think you're too stupid. You're a simpleton. You can't understand what they're trying to promote. They think we've been saying this for years. They think you're stupid. We don't think people are stupid. We think people have a will to find the truth, or they don't. Some people will ignore the truth. That's one thing. We don't think people are stupid. They think you're stupid. They think you can't see what they're trying to point out and trying to sell to them. And that's exactly where they are as a party. They don't see themselves as radicals, and they get more radical by the minute. They just don't. The vote on babies surviving abortion and not requiring doctors to assist those babies. That says everything, because I've said this. If it begins where because everything at the basis of it is you value life. If you don't value life, you don't value anybody's life. You don't value their work. You don't value their families. You don't value life. And when you don't value life, everything else is gone. They don't care about you, and that's the basis of it right there.
86690 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Most owner-operators leased to larger carriers are paid on a per-mile basis or a percentage of revenue per load. The per-mile basis is most prevalent among larger fleets. Percentage at smaller. Pay per mile tends to dominate discussions about pay just because it's easier to measure, and pay per mile often is wrongly used as the deciding factor in leasing to a carrier. While pay per mile can be a vital factor, it's not a cure for every ill, nor does it mean a big settlement check is coming an owner-operator's way. Why? Because pay per mile always must be considered in balance with gross revenue as well as total costs. Gross revenue can include flat mileage pay that varies by length of haul, percentage revenue pay, and more. Most importantly, though, for every revenue dollar generated, only part of that dollar is profit. But for every extra dollar of cost saved, the entire dollar contributes to profit. Knowing and understanding your cost to operate is fundamental to understanding the true value of any pay package. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Just looking at this week, and we'll continue looking at this this week, which I think was a very important week because and I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and he's been a conservative his whole life and a Trump supporter. We had just a great conversation, and I said, well, we had talked about it, and I said, well, if Trump gets 40% or 30% of what he wants, that would be huge. And he went, yeah, I know. But when you look at the last week right now, and I told him, I said, I know what the Republicans are going to do. I know what Trump's going to do. And obviously he's doing what he said he was going to do. Mm-hmm. Said, what I find really interesting from a political point of view is where the Democrats are going to go.
Yeah.
And the fact that they've decided, as of right now, will they change? I don't know. I can't tell you what the future brings. But as of right now, they're not changing. They're not changing at all. So who are their leaders? And we got into a great discussion on, where the Democrats, could go. And you basically come up against a wall.
Yeah.
You come up, it's like, I have no idea.
I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know who leads them. I don't know where they go. I really don't know because they cannot detach themselves from their agenda. They really can't. They can't stop their behavior of calling names, the name calling thing, and really the Nazi thing. It's like they're just burning it out. They they didn't get it. Some of them did. A couple along the way. Okay, you guys called him a Nazi, and now, some of you don't have a problem with him, and it's like, all right, he's not a Nazi. You're lying about this. This, of course, is garbage. We know this. And then they come back, at inauguration, and then boom, 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 all over again. I suspected they were waiting for him to basically take power. They were waiting for him to, be president again before they ramped everything back up. But it's only because it's the only thing they have.
But it's a smaller group of people.
Mm-hmm.
They're You're hearing even, at times to me, it even sounds more radical, but it's coming from more of the government officials instead of radical organizations.
Exactly.
It's coming from the Democrats.
Yep, it is.
In Congress. We'll get to more of this coming up.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thanks for being here. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose. You and I, this week, we've just looked at this as a week and said, wow, what a week it's been, because we know where the Republicans are going, but we've also learned where the Democrats are going.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to remain as radical as possible. We always thought it would be very tough for the Democratic Party to change. One of the reasons is because of the victim-oppressor narrative that they live by, and which really, melds right into identity politics, which is you judge people by groups and not individuals. Mm-hmm. Therefore, you have marginalized groups, which are the victims, and then the oppressor groups, and you keep expanding and expanding. And we've always said, and this is basic, this is politics 101, and everybody understands it. If you're going to have a political party, you have to focus on uniting.
Yeah.
Well, how do you unite people? Well, they thought they could do it by having separate marginalized groups that are victims. What they fail to recognize is they keep expanding then. The more groups of victims you have, the more groups of oppressors you have, and eventually the people that you were defending as being oppressed are now the oppressors.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you see the Democrats are all over the place right now. But identity politics has been a huge problem, and this, a man by the name of Coleman Hughes, Barry Weiss tweeted this out on the Free Press. He put out his article. Now, we played the audio of when Mr. Hughes, who was black, was on The View. And I think this goes back to last February. And he writes here, last February, my book, The End of Race Politics, Arguments for a Colorblind America, was published. In it, I argued that color blindness, the principle that people should be treated without regard to their race, should guide American public policy. For this, I was called a charlatan by Sonny Hostin on The View. I did not foresee that less than a year later, Donald Trump would become president again, and that upon taking office, he would end decades of race-based presidential directives and, with the stroke of his Sharpie, adopt my call for racial color blindness. When I first became a talk show host almost 36 years ago, I got advice from people in the business. And one of the things, okay, if you're going to be a talk show host, you might really want to stay away from race. I went, why? Why would I want to stay away from racial issues? I talk everything. Well, because we sort of know your beliefs. And my beliefs were the only way you ever get rid of racism is to have a colorblind society.
Right.
I agree with Mr. Hughes and always have. And I remember even when I worked in Illinois, there was a mayor of the town that I worked in who said the worst, and this has to go back to 94, said the worst problem in this country is racism, and I said no, it's not. It's jealousy. It's envy. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
People don't walk around thinking I'm superior to you because of your skin color or your ethnicity or your religion or whatever.
Right.
They just don't. People don't operate that way in the real world. They don't. And how do I know it? Well, because 50 years ago, when I was a bill collector at the bank, we had a collection of misfits. And if they were all here, they'd be laughing at me saying that. A collection of misfits who, were in college, probably it might have been 60% white, 40% black. It might have been 50-50. Everybody got along.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget years later, because when I went in to apply for that job, I was a shrimp. I didn't start growing until my 20s. I really didn't. I was only like 5'2", 5'3" when I went for that job, and they hired me. And I remember asking my boss years later, "Why did you hire me?" He goes, "Because we hired people that were weird, independent, but probably were going to be successful in life. We didn't want the average person." And so it didn't matter whether you were white or black. They were looking for people that were because to be a bill collector, you need to have a certain personality.
Yeah, right.
And I can't tell you how that helped me develop as somebody who was willing to express my ideas, which then led to radio.
Mm-hmm.
It really did. When you have to call somebody, and I've told some of the stories about calling the mob boss and everything else, and you have to, as a 18-year-old who's barely out of puberty. "Hello, Mr. Mob Boss, did you pay your bill?"
Oh, hey, Mr. McNamara. Hey, let me ask you. Hey, do you like simple things like walking with both legs?
Well, I'll tell you who. I've told people who's Stefano Magaddino's son, Peter Magaddino.
Mm-hmm.
And you remember the Appalachia meeting that they had?
Mm-hmm.
That Stefano Magaddino is the one that, that the FBI, that's when they first started taking down the mob, the FBI, but it was his son, Peter Magaddino. And he had a line of credit. He had a line of credit that was coming down delinquent. Now, he had the money. It was just, and he said, "Oh, it's my accountant's fault." Well, I had to call the next month because he was delinquent again. He was furious. "Well, I'll tell you, it's not going to happen again, Mr. McNamara, because the last thing really any mob boss wants is problems with a huge bank. You don't need it. And in a way, it's insulting that, you can't pay a bill that you can pay." And he was pretty angry at his accountant, and I'm scanning the newspaper. Seeing if anybody comes up.
Accountants had suddenly,
disappeared.
Retired
Yes.
permanently.
It didn't happen, but we had a collection of unique people, and I asked my boss years later. Like I said, "Why did you?" He goes, "Because we hired people that were just weird. Because you have to be weird to do this job." And everybody got along. Everybody got along, and that was a half century ago.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody teased each other. We worked together. We played together. Probably mean we drank together. That was the kind. But we played sports together. It was a huge camaraderie that existed there. And so my entire life, even though I know what was going on, I grew up in the 60s, I remember the race riots, and then I remember what happened in the 70s. And I looked at it and I go, well, I've never personally had any problem with anybody because I don't judge anybody by their skin color.
Right.
I don't look at anybody. And when you say, well, I'm colorblind, the first thing the left will say is, "What do you mean? You mean you don't recognize their color?"
Well, remember when the left went on a rant? Who was it? Tommy Lahren, I think, was on. Was it the Daily Show? She was on a late night show, and they asked her, and she said, "Well, no, I don't see color." And you know what she meant by that,
right? Yeah.
And then they just, the left just goes off. "What do you mean you don't? You know exactly." In fact, it was the left that kind of embraced that idea at one point ages ago, because anybody with a brain knew what you were saying and understood, and most people actually do behave that way.
Yeah, they do.
That your race isn't the concern. It's behavior of people.
Your character.
It's about, that's pretty much it. It really is Martin Luther King's vision. That's really what he wanted to see. Well, the left didn't want that, still doesn't want that. In fact, more than ever, they don't want that.
And when I was in my 20s and 30s, even 40s, I lived all over the country. And one of the first things I did was find the local basketball court to play, because I played basketball my whole life. Doggone it, my ankle is pain. Man, sometimes it really hurts. I'm glad I didn't play professional sports, by the way.
Right.
Most of the time, the vast 99% of the time, I was the minority on the court. And probably 70% of the time, I was the only white guy on the court. I never thought anything of it at all. Anything.
Right.
And neither did they. Right. Now, was there some bigotry? Yes, because the first day when they didn't know who I was the short white guy, so I was picked last. That ended.
Right.
After, a couple of times of playing basketball. But I never sat there and went, it's because I'm white. It's you're short and you're not really quick, but you got a shot. And I could pass the ball and I could play good defense. So, but I didn't care. They didn't care. All they cared about, were did you help the team and did you laugh a lot? Now, I will remember this true story. When I played in the courts, this was at Rockford, Illinois, when I lived in Rockford. And I was the only white guy there. Only white guy. Every week, I was the only white guy on the court. And, they're calling each other the N-word, back and forth. And finally, I forgot whether I hit a shot or made a basket, whatever. And, my team loved me because I burned one of the guys who had was a good trash talker. And I knew I could beat him to the basket. I just, I set him up a couple times, hit a couple and fake drive, and then, just faked him out, went in, put the layup in. And they were just going crazy. And they said, well, look, what are we going to call you? And somebody said, we can't call him the N-word, so let's call him Woody. And at that time, white men can't jump and come out.
All right.
And I just stopped.
Right.
And I went, what? I'll never forget. It was it was really great because I just said, you guys found the dumbest white man character ever, and that's what you're going to refer to me as? And I was like yelling at them, and everybody's like taken back, like, whoa. And I went, just kidding.
Yeah.
And then I was in for,
Yeah.
And so, again, you played with it. You teased about, race for a tiny bit, and then it was gone. But it was all good-natured. It didn't mean anything. And I never felt uncomfortable, and they never felt uncomfortable.
Right.
All they cared about is let's have fun.
Yeah.
That's what it was about. And so I've always believed what Coleman Hughes believes. The only way, and we talked about this when the whole Starbucks thing came out. We're going to put race on the cup, and then you're going to discuss race with the barista. And then when Schultz came out and said, you probably don't even know the racial makeup of your neighbors.
You should know it.
And I'm like, well.
Which is weird.
Right.
What, are you going to go door to door?
Which is like.
What are we talking about here? Who lives here?
No, I shouldn't be concerned about the racial makeup of my neighbors.
That sounds like somebody who's obsessed with it.
Yeah.
I had a friend from grew up in England, British, and a few times we talked about it. He said the media over here is obsessed with racism. They're overly obsessed with it. And he says, it's catching fire now in Great Britain, which it did. He said, but Here, it's nonstop. And he said, it's just bizarre to witness. I said, no, it is an obsession. And you have to wonder about people who are obsessed with it. You know, over and over again, we see it. Still today.
Yep.
You know, liberal white protesters shouting in the face of a black police officer that he's abandoned his race.
He's betraying his race because he's a police officer.
Because he's a cop.
My God, I'll never forget that as long as I live.
Yeah.
That's where the left got to.
Young white girls telling a black man, you are betraying your own race.
Because you're a cop and you wish to protect other people.
Yeah.
That's how
thinking
insane.
They know better.
That was what we got in 2020. Remember that. Remember.
Right. Yep.
If you're a black cop, you're not really black. You're blue.
Right.
Wow.
Yep. This is who they are. They really are obsessed with it.
And we'll talk more about that because it's really important because that's part of this week. I mean, the identity politics is all a part of it. That's all part of DEI. And we've learned where the Democrats are going to go this week. 866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley and I'm Gary McNamara. So I guess the big point would be the Democrats we have found out this week are not going to change at all. They're going to be as radical as possible. I was just reading an article from the Huffington Post saying, well, Democrats are going to be more low-key. Is that what you've seen?
No.
No, that hasn't happened.
No,
that hasn't happened at all.
happen.
One of the problems is because they cannot give up identity politics.
No, they can't.
We'll talk more coming up.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Hello. So, interesting week. We know where the Republicans and where Trump is going. Mm-hmm. We also know where the Democrats now are going, and they're not going to change at all. The loss in November apparently meant nothing to them. And you and I just, went through, for example, the problem with one of the biggest problems for Democrats is identity politics. They can't change that. They can't. They've been dependent on it since I've been in talk radio. Identity politics, judging people by groups, the victim oppressor mentality that exists in there. Well, they just can't get rid of it. Mm-hmm. They just can't.
No.
And so when you look at identity politics, which is judging people by groups and not individuals, as long as you do that, you're always going to be involved in racist policies. This all gets to the whole DEI thing. We already have federal non-discrimination laws in this country, mm-hmm. and states have them too. The whole concept of DEI is that whites are culturally racist to the point that it is almost genetic.
Yeah. Right.
Which is not true. And we mentioned the author Coleman Hughes, who wrote an article in the Free Press. And as he wrote, he was on The View in February, earlier this year, and he was called a charlatan. Now, he's a black man and says, unless we have color blindness, a principle that people should be treated without regard to their race, we're never going to get over this. It's always been our philosophy. Mm-hmm. And then he says, I did not foresee that less than a year later, Donald Trump would become president again, and that upon taking office, he would end decades of race-based presidential directives, and with the stroke of his Sharpie, adopt my call for racial color blindness. You brought up earlier that whenever that's brought up, you say, "No, I'm colorblind." No, you're not. You have to recognize color. You see if somebody. Well, of course, that's not the point.
They know what it means,
right?
And then they pretend like it's the first time anybody's ever said it.
Yeah, they play stupid. It's like, I probably recognize hair color too.
Mm-hmm.
I recognize whether you're tall or short.
Right.
And by the way, now the one I saw today, Barron behind the White House, and his body about, who's standing
Towering
up.
over.
He's now 150 feet tall.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
It just every day
keeps growing.
He keeps growing. I don't care whether you're tall or short. I don't care about your physical characteristics.
Right.
I don't care.
I will say there's a concern if you have two eyes of a different color. That's why I had an issue with David Bowie. But it's,
wasn't that in Wayne's World too?
Was it?
when they went to get the concert permit?
Right.
Remember? And the one guy had the weird eye.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, that's right.
That was a classic line from Wayne. Well, make sure we'll make sure that we what did he say? Dot our I's and then lower. No, it wasn't dot I's. Lowercase J's. He said instead of I's, dot our I's, because he didn't want to say I's.
Right.
Because they're looking at him going.
Right. Yeah.
But we don't. Of course, we're not idiots. We can observe and say, oh, that person has a different skin color than I do.
And it doesn't matter.
Yes, and it doesn't matter. Well, you can't have that, because when you live your life that there are victims and oppressors, when you lie, I mean, there are victims and oppressors, but the victims and oppressors are not based on skin color anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Used to be.
Yeah.
Without question, it used to be. It's not anymore. People don't think that way. But institutions do. And what's the institution? Democrats were right when they said there's systemic racism in the United States, but they were pointing in the wrong direction. The systemic racism exists and has been institutionalized in the Democratic Party through identity politics.
Mm-hmm.
They all know it. They admit it. You see intellectually honest Democrats saying we've got to stop with the identity politics. How did Trump unite? Trump simply united saying, we are here to protect everybody, and the policies that we had before, you had jobs. No matter what color your skin is, whether you're tall or short, man or woman, didn't matter. The government will be there. My job as president is not to make your life harder. That unites people together. And until the Democrats dump identity politics, and I think part of it's been so institutionalized inside the Democratic Party, I believe that you have Democrats that have white guilt.
Mm. Oh,
I really do,
yeah.
because
I think so. Yeah.
If you judge everybody, you and I were always found it interesting that any position that we held, Democrats used to call, they don't anymore, used to call and say, well, you guys are racist for that.
Mm-hmm.
How?
Mm-hmm.
Why is the first accusation that you're a racist or you're a Nazi? Oh, because that's how you think. You judge people by groups.
It's their obsession. It really is.
Right. You judge people by groups. I don't. You do. No wonder you think I do, because you think I must think like you. I don't think like you.
Right.
And so the racism that exists in the United States, and this is one thing, the Republicans and Trump, much better at communicating, but when they talk DEI, they've got to get to the specifics of why it's bad. I saw the other day again, the Mark Cuban argument. Well, I don't know why people object to diversity and equality and inclusion.
Well, it's like saying
let's be Mark Cuban plain stupid now.
Well, it's like saying we don't know why you're against the Inflation Reduction Act. You don't want to reduce inflation,
right? Well, no, that's not what it's about. Exactly. Yeah. Isn't it wonderful though? Because Democrats will say something and they mean the opposite, and their bills do the same thing. Their legislation did the same thing.
Exactly.
And so as long as they say we're going to be racist, all they're going to do is divide. And that's what they've done. They've successfully divided. And we used one of the utmost perfect examples of it when Biden came out against the Georgia election law and said it was Jim Crow 2.0. Well, anybody who knows Jim Crow 2.0 knew that bill was Jim Crow, like Elon Musk is a Nazi.
Exactly.
They know it was pure BS. Major League Baseball. Think about the intimidation that existed where Major League Baseball moved the All-Star game, hurting many black businesses, moved it to a much whiter area. That also came out. Based on a lie.
Yep.
Based on a lie. And that's when at that point you said, okay, he did learn from his segregationist friends, did he not? Tell a lie about race to make people hate each other based on skin color and tell the biggest whopper lie in the world. Because as we know, with that new law in Georgia, when it comes to satisfaction of voting, doesn't matter what demographic you are, people have been pleased with the last few elections since that law passed. Totally pleased.
Right.
And so it's a lie, and that's the worst. You want evil? That's evil.
Well, and they, of course, in relation to that, the voter ID, they kept doing the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
And then everywhere they implemented voter ID, everybody was like, oh, no, we like this. And voter turnout increased. And they were going, oh, yeah, to the point that Senator Warnock in Georgia finally had to say, they felt compelled to say, well, I don't even know anybody who's against voter ID.
I know.
I'm sorry, are you still a Democrat? Yeah, it's...
Yep.
These...
And so the only reason, as we've said, Newsom wants... The Democrats and Newsom in California, they want fraud.
Yeah.
They want fraud. Because there's no other reason to be against voter ID except you don't believe you can convince the American public on the issues anymore, so you want fraud. Gavin Newsom and the Democrats in California, they want fraud in elections.
Yep.
Because every argument they have tried to use, reality has shown everyone they're wrong. And they won't change.
No, they're not going to change. It's not going to... You can't unindoctrinate. You think about AOC. She's in that perfect age demographic of the example as to why you can't unindoctrinate. This is how you raise them. This is what you guys have been doing for decades. This is you grow up. If you grow up believing the sky is green and the grass is blue, you're being told that. We go back to The Village.
The movie The Village.
The movie
not,
The Village.
Not the Hillary book.
Yeah. And not The Neighborhood. It's a
Yes.
it's you go back to this idea of indoctrinating from that young age over and over again. Well, that is their truth. Even if they learn something new, they don't apply it.
If you don't know the relationship of what Eric's talking about when he brings up the movie The Village by M. Night Shyamalan, Eric a couple of months ago said, wow, that movie is about the Democratic Party.
It's about the Democratic Party and Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it. What did they do?
But the village leaders are the Democratic Party.
They're the Democratic Party.
Right.
And what did they do? They literally sent in the storyline a young blind girl to get help. They don't want you to see the truth.
Yeah.
They built a wall to keep you in, and they created a monster that actually wasn't really a monster, that didn't exist. In this case, we believe that represented Trump, who was partial to the color red. Which exactly I'm not wrong about this.
And in reality, it was the leaders of the village. They were actually the monsters.
They were the monsters. They literally created the monsters with help from the character Iggy Danchenko. And
I don't think Iggy was in that.
No, maybe not.
You're confusing now movies with reality. Iggy Danchenko is the Russian national who helped write the dossier in a drunk fest.
Right. They create this, and the monster's partial to the color red. Don't wear red. Don't wear red. Don't you dare put that MAGA hat on, they said in the movie. I don't think they said it, but probably, maybe. It probably was edited out. I mean, it's I'm right on that. But the more I think about it, the more examples come back over and over again that relate to that movie.
We need to contact Ron Howard and tell him that, because his daughter was the star of the movie.
Exactly.
The movie. So we need
yes.
to see, Ron, look, you're wrong. Now his brother's more Republican conservative.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's I am going to have to sit down and watch that movie again, because then I'm going to have to make notes, because I know there are more examples that are directly tied to exactly what I'm saying. I'm not wrong. You watch the movie with different eyes. Watch it and think about the Democrats being the adults, the elders in this case. Because frankly, William Hurt was Schumer. That's who he was.
Oh my gosh, I can't remember the other character who would be Hillary then. It's no, not Hillary, Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, right. I'll find out. I'll watch it again.
And somebody asked me the other day, they said, why do Democrats in Congress, why do their women always whine? Why is it a whine kind of, they whine in defense of their argument? It's like a whine. And I went, wow.
Yeah,
it's really good.
exactly.
Because you don't see it in Republican women, but there's a whine. There's a certain whine to the voice, whether it's Hirono, whether it's Warren. There's this like identical kind of whining.
Yeah, exactly. That's who they are. They sound like a teacher who's trying to calm a class. Please, everybody must sit down so we can have coloring book time. I'm telling you, I'm right on this.
By the way, you just made me think of this. Did they pull off the coloring books in order to have therapy because of the inauguration last week?
Maybe that's what Kamala and her husband were buying at the store.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning and welcome. Thanks so much for being here. All right, some of the highlights from Trump this week. This is one of the highlights from Trump.
Yeah.
As we now know, where the Republicans and where Trump is going to go and where it seems like Democrats are going to go. Here's what Trump was talking. One of the hundreds of things he talked about this week.
We can supply the whole world with energy. That's what we have. For hundreds of years, we could supply the whole with, at this moment, the best energy, because natural gas is clean and it's powerful. You need power, and it's consistent. Not like wind. The wind blows and then it doesn't blow, and the things cost a fortune. They're made in China and they kill the birds, and they're horrible. We don't want windmills in this country. We're putting an order out. I've already sort of done it. We don't want windmills. If you have a house and you're in vision of a windmill, your house is worth half. It's a disaster. And nobody wants them, and they're the most expensive energy of any kind of energy. You know what else people don't like? Those massive solar fields built over land that cover 10 miles by 10 miles. I mean, they're ridiculous, the whole thing. And by the way, you know where the panels come from? 100% of the panels are made in China.
I don't know what he was referring to when he was talking about windmills in a house. I don't know.
That the value of your home, if you've got a bunch of windmills nearby, the value of your home is
okay. All right, that's what he meant. Okay, I wasn't. All right, yeah.
Right.
No, but he's right on that one.
Yeah,
he's right. Your value goes way down. I didn't understand the context. But,
well, it's why the liberals don't want them around their property.
Yeah,
you know.
How do you argue that right now?
You can't. With
the price of electricity, especially in liberal states, California that pays, what is it, almost double electricity that we do here in the state of Texas.
Yep.
And so
there's really no argument there. It used to be people would go in, and I'm sure someone in the liberal media did it, fact checking. Well, it's your house depreciate by half. We found that to be mostly false, blah, 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 blah. The sentiment that he's putting across about massive windmill farms, massive solar farms, people are done with that. And on top of that, it's enormously expensive. We are buying all these parts from China. And what is it doing? It's doing nothing.
Well, because you still have to back it up with traditional energy.
Exactly.
Which then you have to subsidize the wind, the solar, and
the backup.
The consistent, the backup, which is the consistent form of energy, which means you have an unnecessary redundancy.
Yes. Unbelievable.
It's not hard for people to understand that.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. More audio. Because as I sit here on a Friday, I just look and I go, this is a week where we now know where the Republicans are going and where the Democrats are going.
Yeah.
Let's play more audio. This is DeSantis in Florida talking about illegals. This reporter, well, I'm just going to play it so you can hear it.
Right.
And the only background is the reporter said undocumented, and DeSantis corrected him.
Oh. Okay.
Here we go.
All right.
WJFC News Channel 4 here in Jacksonville. I just have 4 questions. One, Florida is home to hundreds of thousands of undocumented immigrants who are working in areas.
Well, so the federal government has made clear that the statutory term, it's not they're illegal aliens. That's the statutory term, and that's what it is. And I think it's to try to water down. I mean, like, undocumented, it's like if I get in my car and I forget my wallet, okay, I don't have my document on me, like my driver's license, but I mean, I still have a right to drive. I just made a mistake. This is intentional to come in illegally. And it's not just a question of missing a document. It's a question of, you violated the law that were very clear, and knowingly, and with the help of the cartels in many cases.
So I'll rephrase that. So Florida is home to hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants who are illegal aliens.
Wow.
I love the fact that he did that. I love that we're finally to that, because for far too long, you and I talked about how the GOP would just lay down, right? You just go along. You go along with it. And then they start using that language. We've talked about, Fox News sometimes uses the language from the liberal agenda. It's like, don't do that. Because he's right. You want to water this down. You want to, you want this to be, because your premise, it sets the premise when you change the language.
Mm-hmm.
And the left knows that. And through years and years of indoctrination, we must sound more caring. Doesn't make you more caring. You may think it sounds more caring, but using different words doesn't make you care more.
George Carlin, the comedian, talked about it when he talked about politically correct words. And this goes back 30 years ago. And he started saying, he said, what the left is doing with changing words is the fact of moving further away from what the truth is.
Yeah, right.
And so when you say undocumented, it's like, okay, you don't have the documents. You don't have your documents with you, as DeSantis said, and that's not the case.
Right.
And what you get, and this isn't just here. You can see it in the radical transgender movement. Well, no, but if you use those words that tell the truth and describe exactly what's going on, well, then you're mean.
Right.
And if you're mean, people will feel hurt. So you shouldn't tell the truth. You should water it down, and that will be much more acceptable to us.
And for a minute, they tried to use temporarily displaced traveler
in California, yeah.
I mean, Google that. It was a thing. They tried to make it a thing because they're trying to change, and they've done this on every front, change the language. If you change the language to sound more caring, if someone uses anything but that language, they will sound uncaring.
Well, in the radical transgender movement, even when conservative media was covering it, you'd have somebody who was a man who says, I'm a woman, which would be a trans woman. And the story would be written that, these pronouns, we're not going to use these pronouns, we're not going to use these pronouns, and we don't care what she says.
Right, exactly.
Well, wait a minute. You just said that the man is a she, but the pronouns are wrong.
Yeah, you just said you refuse to use the pronoun while using the pronoun.
And we caught that. We caught that in conservative media publishing it.
Yeah.
Now it seems like they're on it. If somebody is you'll see, they'll say it's a trans woman, and he said.
Well, I found it interesting. The New York Times poll that we talked about, was it yesterday, I think, and talking about transgenders in women's sports. But the way they phrased it in the questioning, and again, it's the New York Times, was vastly different than what we have heard up until then. And I don't know who built out the methodology for that survey. I don't know. I can't tell you that. But it was the New York Times in presenting it and the results. And they didn't soft walk it. It was about a man who, at one point they said a man who identifies as a woman, but up until lately, and maybe that's an anomaly, I don't know, I suspect that it is, but I was surprised that was coming from the New York Times in the way the results were presented. But this is because you have to change the language, and you have to control the conversation. This is what we have seen with the COVID lab leak theory, with the laptop story, with everything. As John Kerry said recently, the First Amendment blocks our agenda. So what do you have to do? Well, in a move closer and closer to full government control, you have to control the Capitol, you have to control the means of production eventually, but you also have to control the conversation. You have to do away with free speech in order to get to that point where there is full government control. That is the ultimate goal, has been from the beginning for these people who, Bernie was trying to soft sell the socialism. I'm a democratic socialist. Okay, whatever. You know what I mean? And it wasn't long before that during the Obama years that the left tried to say, well, socialist is the new N-word. They actually said that.
Yeah, yep.
making you, don't you dare say that. Don't you dare say that. And then, well, a few years later, Bernie's out there and everything. Well, no, I'm a democratic socialist. And those are the, and by the way, so is the leader of Venezuela, Bernie. But those are the things, because, I mean, I know he got 101% of the votes, but those are, I know I'm exaggerating. It was 120. But that's what you have to do. You have to control the language. You have to, because they thought they were doing that. They really thought they were well on their way with social media, because what is the conversation? Well, the conversation today isn't on the phone. It's not in person. It's not on the phone. It's people that are communicating via social media. So if you can control that, you control the language, and of course they did. We learned now from Zuckerberg. We know from the Twitter files. Control that conversation. Shut out someone who's not on the agenda. New York Post laptop story. Anybody who had any kind of opinion on the lab leak theory, and you could not break that. You couldn't break that until, again, the truth at some point is always going to rise to the surface. It's always, somebody's going to find it. And eventually it did. Elon Musk buys Twitter. And then Zuckerberg feels more and more empowered to come out and go, oh, yeah, they were, also, talking to us, communicating with us on a regular basis on, what was real, what wasn't real on the laptop thing, the lab leak theory, all of these things. The one thing that, and we mentioned it earlier, but Elon Musk saying you are the media is one of the most important things, I think, because he's more prominent than Red Eye, just a little. He has a much bigger following on his own platform. But it's what we have been saying, that the truth, you can find the truth. You have the ability. You just have to have the will to find the truth. We don't believe you're stupid. You just have to have the will to go do it. And that's what he means by you are the media. And then community notes applied, basically, is that theory applied. It's not a theory, it's reality. Applied, and now Facebook agrees. And what is that? That is a free society. That is free speech all along the way without the government getting involved, thinking they need to control those platforms in order to control free speech. John Kerry said it. I'm glad he said it out loud. And they believe this. And Hillary believes you should be in prison for telling a lie. Yes, that same Hillary. That free speech blocks their agenda. They can't have that, and they'll use every bit of their power. I heard the other day where, there were some in the FBI that said, and I don't know how much of this is accurate, but it was being reported. Some of the FBI are concerned about, Trump's approach to, the FBI and how things are going to change, basically, within the Justice Department. I thought, well, the ones who would be concerned would be who? The ones guilty of what he's talking about.
Right. Exactly.
It's the whole point. I know. I know.
The ones who said, yeah, we think it's okay to, let's go after Catholics.
Right. Exactly.
I think maybe those that had that opinion. Yeah, but that was just a regional. I don't care if it was just a regional office.
Right.
They're FBI agents.
Right. Well, the whole Lois Lerner thing on the IRS back with the Tea Party. Oh, it's a couple of rogue agents. No, it is a culture that is deeply embedded, and the tone set from the top. Back then, it was the tone under Obama. It was the tone under Biden and the Democrats. It is a culture that is put in place, and it's just like the Fight Club. You don't need to tell them what to do. Tyler Durden doesn't need to go out and give everybody a mandate. The mandate is clear. They all know what to do.
How I've happened to see her post a lot, Meghan McCain.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's rah-rah, sis-boom bop for the Republican Party where Trump is going.
Right.
It's really, I'm like, what's going on? And then she posted yesterday, she said, it's actually cool now. She goes, I never thought I would see this in my life. It's actually cool now to be a Republican in our culture and not a Democrat. Being a Democrat is not cool. And I went,
that's
wow, what a
you know,
great observation.
I think it is a great observation. The only thing is, I hope it's not the kind of trend that we saw for a few minutes during George W. Bush's term. There were a couple of people that came out and and then later down the road they go, oh no, I'm not a Republican anymore. I really think this time it is different. I think it's different because there are so many fundamentals that have shifted in big ways. And the reality that we talked about with inflation hitting families, a broken border, the rise in crime, and all of these realities that really shake you to the core and are ultimately a threat to your family, including the liberal transgender movement when they want to come after your kids. These are families fighting for what we had in this country before, and they want it to be returned.
866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up following the top of the hour, the removal of criminal illegal immigrants in the United States. Tom Homan speaking on it. 1,300 removed. He said over 1,000 were criminals.
Yeah. Right.
And then you had Bill Maloogian following. You see that one guy, the one illegal immigrant, I think from Jamaica, screaming.
Yeah, F Trump, and I'm not going back.
That's the last thing the left wants to see right now, because they're trying to make it that it's going to be, women and children that they're getting rid of, and that coming out like that, they allowed Maloogian to be there on the raids.
Yep. No, I think that's what you want. You want
they're not hiding it. That's transparency.
You've got to have that transparency, but you also have to have that counter to. Because Maloogian's been there on the whole border issue. Maloogian's been there for a while. I mean, it's really where I think most people, if you know his name, that's probably what you know him from, his reporting on the border stuff. And so it's a counter to the other liberal activist media that's going to bring up stories about, oh, we're living in fear and we're doing this and blah, 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 blah. If you look at how it's being carried out, the left doesn't want the truth shown. They really don't. They want this to be, some kind of, special human interest, special story that they're going to feature on their evening news and make you feel sorry for individuals. Well, these are criminals we're talking about.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. I just can't. I don't know if I'm going to make it through the next 4 years. And I mean it from the entertainment, I can't handle laughing anymore part of it, where my whole throat will be dry and sore because I can't stop laughing. And more media outlets, especially on social media, picking up on the rumor that and they've been quiet about it. I mean, neither party that I've seen has said anything on it, that the reason that Michelle Obama was not at the inauguration, the reason she wasn't at Jimmy Carter's funeral is because they're getting a divorce because Obama now is with Jennifer Aniston.
Right.
And so,
Barack is with Jennifer Aniston.
What'd I say?
Yeah. Well, you said Obama, but it's, to be clear, it's Barack. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Yes,
that's
yes,
the rumor.
yes,
That's the
right. Just wanted
rumor.
Yeah, that's the rumor.
Just to make that.
So I'm just
distinction.
going through X, and man, I tell you, AI could be a problem, but sometimes you gotta love it.
Oh,
There's
it's so entertaining.
picture of this beautiful beach and the perfect sunset coming through. There's Barack Obama and Jennifer Aniston. They're holding each other. I mean, it's not like a close dance or a close hug, but they're far enough where they're looking into each other's eyes. And I saw that a little while ago and almost spit up my coffee. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so entertaining. And then, in a way, it's like, look, they can do whatever they want, and they're all consenting adults. All I'm looking for is anybody who could do a Russian, a Barack Obama impersonation, talking about doing an impersonation about his new girlfriend.
Yeah. Well, I just want you to know, I'll be there for you.
Well, exactly. The Friends memes.
It's just going to be
that would
everywhere.
come up with it.
Well, I bet somebody on YouTube has already done the Friends opener, thing, the show opener that they have, and inserted Barack in there somewhere. Someone has to with AI at some point.
Oh, what I want to see is the one where like it would be Barack and Jennifer Aniston walking together, and then somebody's walking the other side, and it's Ross, and his head's turned, and her head's turned too, looking at Ross. And,
Yeah.
all their heads are turned, looking at Ross as he's walking, and Ross is like, looking, what's going on, man?
Yeah, exactly.
I thought you were mine.
Yeah, exactly.
I just,
Yeah,
it was because it was the perfect sunset, and there was open space between them. They're holding each other like by the shoulders, like looking deep into each other's eyes, and the sun is coming right through the middle of them, as as it's setting in the beautiful ocean. I don't know why, but that was one of the funniest things I saw all week.
Yeah,
It just made me
hilarious. The Twitchy team on X, they cover like when tweets are going back and forth, if there's some kind of posts that are going back and forth on X, and they've been doing it since long before X became X, and they've got this post a little while ago. Trump trauma. Kamala Harris sought Hillary Clinton's advice for dealing with being a huge loser. And it's got a picture of Hillary on it, or she's, I don't know. It's funny because she's holding both fists really tight, like she's making a strong point, but to me it looks more like Beavis. It's pretty hilarious going through this whole thing.
The Babylon Bee.
Oh boy.
Lead headline. It's this woman student holding her degree in her hand, in one hand, and her head's just sort of leaning against, she's leaning against a wall with her head in the other hand.
Yeah.
This real worried look, and it says, "Oh man, Columbia student just graduated with the DEI degree."
Oh my gosh. There's got to be degrees in DEI, right? They had to have started that at these liberal campuses.
Yes, I believe it's called Business Human Resources degree.
Yeah, well, oh my gosh. Yeah, but that's the other thing too. If you look at any human resources department, what are they? Well, they've got to protect essentially the idea is make sure that the employees know what their rights are and everything else. The other side of that coin is protecting the company from, being in trouble. It's all about compliance. Well, if you're moving more and more toward regulations with DEI, it doesn't matter what it is. It has to be about compliance. And so every HR team on the planet was moving in. Companies everywhere were going the DEI route until they weren't. It's just so
you're
fascinating.
Right. Yeah.
So fascinating because you jump on it. What happens is if they believe, if there's confidence that there's going to be more action from the government on that, then you want to get ahead of that. That's what happens. So the companies will adopt that. Now, some companies are just, if you're run by, people who believe in that agenda, then sometimes it happens that way.
The Costco story that came out,
Yeah.
they're not going to drop DEI. But
Right.
then again, by them saying it, they're going to be highlighted. They're going to be all over social media
Right.
as the company that's not doing it.
Instead of being, instead of being neutral, of saying, hey, we offer savings and great deals on all
Right.
types of products. We talked about this with Schultz when he was leading he was leading Starbucks and talking about a number of things. Let's talk about coffee. They can't, let's talk race. Let's think about this. Hey, here's the thing. Okay, first of all, did everybody this morning on the staff go door to door in their neighborhood to make sure they knew the ethnic makeup of their neighborhood? Did you do that? Okay, good. Now, and by the way, please pass those forward. I want those. Now, please, you probably didn't say this, but I'm just thinking the mentality. Next thing is, all right, here's what you do. Same as always, you take the order, right? And then put the order in, all right? And then you go do your barista thing. And then right as you're about to hand him the cup, start a fight.
I remember, I don't know if it was a Babylon Bee, and it was like, pimply-faced goober barista at Starbucks,
Right.
writing race on coffee cup
Yeah.
to get into an intense discussion of reparations.
Right.
And it was
Right. It's
and it was like a white kid and an older black man. And
right,
it was just
exactly, yeah.
but that's still, to me, I never get tired of that story from the comedic point of view.
Right.
Because it was so bizarre.
It was so weird.
Because if I'm the head CEO and it's like, what? You're telling baristas to write race and have discussions with the customers about race?
Yeah.
You're the damn CEO? You're fired. You're gone.
Right.
What are you, nuts?
Right. Who in their right mind?
And the next thing is, all right, we've done enough. Now this week, the baristas are going to have a discussion with you on abortion.
Yeah.
You know,
my gosh.
What is this? Poppy on Seinfeld? It's like, what's the next week? What are we going to do? Let's talk Catholic. This week, we're going to promote Catholicism to our Starbucks
Right. Exactly.
customers.
Right. And then right after that, right on the cup, make America great again.
And we'll have rational discussions with our Starbucks customers
Right.
on making America great again and the Politico article out there about what a great president Donald Trump is.
And then he's thinking, man, I bet this is going to go viral. Yeah, it is.
But, I mean, that had to be the stupidest
Yeah.
ever decision. And then remember, they had it was like a week later. Okay, we're going to move on because we've realized that we could be more effective. No, you're an idiot.
Right, exactly. And then on Sunday, here's what we're going to do. We're going to deliver coffee to the churches everywhere. But right on all the cups, your religion is stupid. Ready? Go.
And then we're going to have a discussion after we tell them their religion is stupid.
Come back to Starbucks after church and talk to us about it. About your stupid religion. I mean, I don't know how in the world that ever got. It's like, dude, don't ever say that out loud anywhere to anyone again. Don't ever. That's the worst idea.
That's the worst marketing idea ever.
Ever.
Nothing will ever beat that one.
Let's talk.
Oh, wait a minute.
Race.
We're talking Democrats. It might.
Right.
I shouldn't say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
By the way, on the barista thing, I saw this weird article came up, because my doctor at least temporarily took me off coffee. We're trying to solve a migraine dilemma. And he says, I know.
You poor human being.
I know, right? I'm drinking green tea. You know who drinks green tea? Nobody. Not one other soul on the planet. There's an abundance of green tea. You know why? They pretended like it was a thing.
Oh, the British do.
Yeah, well, no, not really. They drink the black tea. Yeah.
Black and tan.
Earl Grey, yeah. So the whole thing, I guess it came up in the algorithm on my Googles, and then there was an article about, this blah, blah, blah with your coffee and this with your coffee. And then the person writing this article said, I consulted with my barista. What? You mean the guy, the 17-year-old who makes your coffee, you consulted with your barista? Are you kidding me? Look, there are a handful of coffee experts in the world, and some of them are serving coffee. Most of them actually sell the coffee and own the place. I consulted with my barista. Did you make an appointment with that? Can I get in at 11? Travis, do you mind?
Next up, Buffalo Wild Wings bartenders will be discussing race with their customers during football games.
Yeah, my main barista practitioner, Heather, told me. Are you kidding me? Really? Okay.
I don't do anything before I discuss something with my shrink or my baristas.
Well, it's like coffee. It's coffee. Well, how to make the best, absolutely make the best. You know what you do? You start with water. You get you some coffee grounds. Make the water hot. Put it with the grounds. Put that, whatever the juice is, in your cup and drink it. And don't burn yourself. Be careful. I consulted with my barista. Oh, man. If you've got time to consult with your barista,
well,
my gosh.
You can with your bartender because you're drunk.
Right, exactly.
And so if he can say anything,
I'm not
it's like,
going anywhere.
That sounds really good.
Well, that's the thing
I've had a couple of shots and a couple of brews, but...
yeah. Why are you sitting at the bar? It's not because you're consulting. That's just what you're doing while you're waiting to drink more. You're there because the bar is where they keep the alcohol. That's, you're there. It's like a trough. That's where you get it. It's, you just happen to strike up a conversation. You're not going to remember it tomorrow.
Well, I do remember when I was really having problems one time and there I was sitting at the bar and I said, "Can you help me?" And he said, "Yeah, have another."
Exactly. I can't. Here, let me pour you a double. Exactly. Right. You look really troubled. That was the
what
thing.
Great advice.
I know. In pop culture, that's kind of how they portrayed the bartenders.
Yeah, you're right.
As this is somebody who's, gives you some feedback and some life advice. No. It's like, oh, you look really troubled. You need more alcohol, don't you? You kidding me? Of course they're going to be nice.
I've never gotten over that story, and I will never get over that. Howard Schultz doing that and saying, I'm going to have baristas discuss race with our customers.
Right.
Let's have a discussion on race.
Let's write it on their cup. So then they take their cup to the office, and it starts a whole new fight. Like, Wilson, can you come in the office, please?
The most incredible thing is Howard Schultz wasn't fired that day.
No, he went on for years.
Yeah.
For years.
Now, he had a backtrack on it.
Oh, they had to reverse that quickly.
But the backtrack...
With all the fighting and whatnot.
But the backtrack... Wasn't the backtrack part of the full-page ad? The backtrack, well, okay, we're going to move on, but one of the things we're suggesting is, do you even know the race of all of your neighbors?
Right.
We're like, you're digging a bigger hole.
Right.
Shut up.
Right. Well, it's like, what... Okay, write this on the cup. Please don't punch me in the mouth. I mean, seriously. It's how about you write the name on the cup and hand them the cup and
look,
call it a day.
I know the issues we talk about are very serious, but I may die laughing over the next 4 years.
The insanity.
Right here. I may get what did he die from? Laughter.
Yeah, exactly.
His heart couldn't handle it.
Right.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Once a roadside inspection is completed, the officer will close it out, which involves the officer writing or typing up the report. The more the officer found during the inspection, the longer this will take. If violations were discovered, most officers, as a courtesy, will explain the violations to the driver. If there were any out-of-service violations, the officer will normally explain what must be done to get the out-of-service order lifted. Drivers need to be very attentive during this part of the inspection. The driver also needs to read and understand the complete inspection report. After receiving the inspection report, the driver has 24 hours to get the roadside inspection report to the motor carrier. If the driver will not be returning to a company facility within the next 24 hours, the driver needs to know to get it on the way to you via email, mail, or fax within 24 hours. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. One more thing, because we had just flashed back to the Howard Schultz and the worst marketing move ever by a company, which was where the young pimply-faced teenage barista put race on the coffee cup and wanted to discuss race. And I could just imagine when that happened, I thought, wow, it's going to be a nightmare that happens to a customer or barista when they hand the cup and go, did you want that black or with cream?
Exactly, yeah.
Never mind.
Right. Yeah. We'll just we're just gonna move on. It is the worst idea.
Yes.
It's second only to my doctor recommending a green tea. It's a horrible idea. I'm starting to think, by the way, it's my doctor's doing this as a joke. The other doctors in the clinic, what'd you tell him? I told him to drink green tea. Did he buy it? Yeah, he's drinking 8 cups a day. 8 cups a day? The people who make green tea haven't drank 8 cups a day. It's so bad right now with everything. I don't know. You think, again, we talk about self-awareness. How did somebody like Schultz back then, how do you not understand? How do you not get it?
They live in their own
It's a
liberal
delusional
bubble.
mindset, and a lot of that hasn't changed.
No, and we'll get to that coming up.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And I'm Gary McNamara. Nazis over there. Since everybody's a Nazi now.
Yeah.
I guess it's okay to say the soup Nazi now then. Huh?
Be careful.
The whole Seinfeld thing?
We don't want to offend people who like soup.
The soup.
Who are they? They're not. It's weird because it's like the left is so inconsistent about who they are worried about offending.
What I was thinking is, and this isn't even comedic rhetoric. They're losing on everything.
Yeah.
Thinking about that the other day, I said, what is the bright spot right now for a Democrat?
Right.
What's the bright spot? Name one.
Yeah.
Everything that they threw at Trump failed. Forget about the issues. Just for a moment, we're going to get right back to it.
Mm-hmm.
Everything they threw at Trump failed. Every single thing. The optimism that existed 2 years ago is gone.
Right.
Completely gone.
Right.
And then on the issues, every single major issue they're wrong on. They have the wrong opinion. How do we know? Here we go. There's the headline. AOC and Jeffries remain silent on Democrat backlash after saying anti-trans athlete bill empowers child predators. We did that story the other day about, Democrats, including that one prominent Rutgers law professor, Gary Francione, a lifelong Democrat and advocate for LGBTQ rights, who has left the Democratic Party over this. And to continue the article, it said, after alienating Democratic voters with unsubstantiated claims that the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act would empower child predators to give genital examinations to young girls, the two most prominent figures on the left in the House of Representatives who were promoting that are now not addressing the issue. Hakeem Jeffries and AOC were among the 206 Democrats who voted against a bill that would prevent transgender athletes from competing against girls and women in sports. They pushed, both of them, the unsubstantiated claims that it would subject girls to genital examinations by child predators. No language even exists in the bill suggesting genital examinations would occur, and Republicans argued birth certificate would be the determining factor. Jeffries and AOC have not responded to multiple requests for comments from Fox News Digital regarding the arguments, the subsequent backlash from Democratic voters who have said they are leaving the party in response to the arguments. You and I are still going, this is when they decided to leave? Really? But they have, in response to the arguments and data that suggests that a majority of Democrats oppose transgender inclusion in women's sports. That's the New York Times article.
Yeah.
67%. Two-thirds of Democrats are against it.
Yep.
And then listen to this. However, AOC addressed the idea of the culture wars about transgender people being a distraction during an interview on The Daily Show on Thursday. Listen to this gobbledygook. This could be a Harris quote. When we allow ourselves to constantly be distracted by these culture wars around trans people, it's a new thing every day, and the answer isn't that we just let those people be attacked. It's that we say, what are you doing, man? I think we need to make standing up to these folks such an afterthought that it's not even a debate.
Huh?
The hell are you talking about?
What?
Like, we need to understand, and that's a quote when I keep saying like. I just want to make that clear.
Right. Yeah, she was saying like.
Yeah. Like, we need to understand and see the bait for what it is, but we don't take the bait by letting those rights just erode and go by the wayside. What the hell are you talking about? Argue the issue.
Well,
I don't care whether you can, any Democrat, I can sit there and go, a Democrat's trying to bait me. Thank God they are. This is going to be fun.
I'm looking for the bait, actually.
I'll take all the bait from Democrats.
So I'm around looking for bait.
Yep.
I'm like a fish. I'm going to look for the bait.
Give me the bait.
I'm going to take it. I'm willing to do that. And what she's not willing to do, but this is why she kind of has to talk around it. What she needs to do is she needs to put her radicalism right there on the table. Put your radicalism out front. Say what you actually mean.
Yeah. Call it bait. Call it whatever you want. You can throw anything. In fact, the bigger the bait, which is the insane rhetoric, if you wish to throw that my way, I will gladly respond with incredible joy.
Well, because when that agenda includes coming after my kids, you're not going to win that. You're not going to win that at all.
You're not going to win it.
And it does. You're going to come after my daughter and her right to play in sports. She talks about the rights. Well, what rights are you talking about that apply to your agenda?
The reason she didn't address it directly anymore is because both her and Hakeem Jeffries,
they know.
It was such a huge backlash that you people are idiots. Stop it, even from many Democrats like the prominent Rutgers law professor, Gary Francione, a lifelong Democrat and advocate for LGBTQ rights, told Fox News he left the Democratic Party in response to its opposition to the bill. That just made me very upset because it screamed out lack of integrity, lack of honesty. He's just discovering that with Democrats. Francione told Fox News Digital in the exclusive interview, this is a way you fight battles, by trying to insult other people who oppose you and disagree with you and insinuate that they're child molesters or pedophiles. It seems to me like you've lost the game. You don't know how they're ever going to come. I don't know how they're ever going to come back from this.
Yeah.
He said he and many other Democrats in his network of law and education share the disdain for the party's response to the bill and will be leaving the party. Let me ask you this. Because of Trump and the win, have they all changed their minds? Because I don't necessarily.
We've kind of been. This has kind of been the theme of this week.
I don't necessarily buy his story. I don't think he just changed. I think he realizes. I think he's always had this thought in his head.
He feels empowered to talk about.
He feels like he can do it now.
And this is what we talked about with. Look at everybody that was there, the coalition of big tech. I don't, again, I have to repeat that I don't believe Tim Cook voted for Trump, but he knows what it takes for a tech company in today's age. In fact, he's talked openly about it to the liberal activist media. Look, we want to be doing more, but tax laws and everything else and regulations are keeping us from doing that. They want to bring more of their money from that they make overseas back to the U.S. He's talked about that numerous times. Steve Jobs talked about it, and they were ignored by the left. They were ignored. Steve Jobs was ignored by Obama. They were trying to, under Tim Cook's reign, Apple was trying to do that with the Biden administration. I think they made some headway with Republicans during the first Trump term, and I think that's in part why he was up there. Again, I don't expect him to vote. Maybe he did. But I don't expect someone like Tim Cook to vote for Trump. That's not the point. Why were they up there? Why? Because they felt empowered that they could now do that without it being a huge backlash against them. If Tim Cook and the board at Apple thought it was going to damage the company by him being up there, that never would have happened. He wouldn't have been there.
When you look at this, though, the radical transgender movement here, and AOC and Jeffries going quiet, and this professor coming out and saying, no, that's it. I'm going to leave the Democratic Party, and so are my friends. Mm-hmm. And we're at the whole point of bringing up the CEOs is they feel empowered now. Everybody feels empowered. And my question is, do they really not buy into all of this? But the level of intimidation and bullying and threats from Democrats was so great to get on board, where they felt like they had to. And now, again, as we said, they feel like they're empowered. And I say this based on the radical transgender movement and how easily liberal women said to hell with women's rights.
Yeah.
Think about that. The radical transgender movement comes in with this insanity that a man can be a woman if the man says so.
Right.
And they crumble.
Mm-hmm.
They crumble completely. And we saw it in front of our eyes. We saw they can't even call it a woman's march anymore. Now we saw it was the People's March. But you and I remember in 2017 when that women's march came out and they were all unified, and the year after, which would have been 2018, they were split because not all women have vaginas. This is the new women's rights movement. The new women's rights movement is men dictating to women what a woman is.
Right.
And all of a sudden, boom, liberal feminism is gone, and liberal feminism is promoting what men believe. And it crumbled. I mean, it crumbled so quickly. It's almost as if the Democrats say it, we all have to follow it, no matter how insane it is, if it disagrees from what the Republicans are saying. Even if what the Republicans are saying is so common sense and logical, it doesn't matter, and scientifically backed, it doesn't matter. We have to promote the insanity. It is tribalism to a point where I've never seen it, because that type of tribalism does not exist in the Republican Party. I'm not saying there's no tribalism in the Republican Party, but it's not close to the extent of what we've seen in Democrats over the last decade.
Right. No, I think that's, I think a lot of it has gone away. This intimidation, the intimidating factor of the mob has gone away for, I think, a lot of prominent people on the left. Again, which means they didn't buy into it to begin with. As you mentioned, I don't, and I agree with you, I don't buy that it's a change of heart with all of them. I think they feel that, who was the tech billionaire the other day we were talking about it?
Pincus.
Yeah. He was putting things out there. But if you think about it, he was kind of demonstrating how sometimes you might, in your mind, you might start changing, or having different considerations, which, again, I would ask, all right, well, if you were to break down the psychology of that, it means you never fully bought into everything else before. It means you probably always questioned it at the very least. And you just didn't feel empowered to talk about it.
Yeah.
And he talked about that. His press secretary, and then his press secretary left, but his press secretary at the time would say, well, nobody wants to hear your opinion or blah, blah, blah. And then when that person left, he started putting it out there on social media. And he admits, sometimes I got it wrong. I was too much emotion involved. But that sounds like, to me, somebody who's actually saying, all right. That, by the way,
and he was about Charlottesville.
Right.
That's what really changed his mind, was the Democrats' lie about Charlottesville. And he said he was furious and felt hatred because he realized he'd been lied to, and it's such an easy lie to fact check.
Right.
And he didn't do it, so he felt even anger with himself that he was BS'd for such a significant period of time.
And how many on the left, I think including him too, I think he was one that put out there that, well, the other side was so much more inviting.
Yeah.
So much more open to discussion. Well, that's just the way it is. I mean, if you're a conservative, I want to hear what other people think, whether they agree or disagree. I want to hear what other people think.
Well, Republicans argue all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Conservatives argue all the time.
Right. Yep, happens all the time.
How do I know? I'm arguing with my friends all the time.
Yeah, happens all the time.
Most of them are conservative.
But you can have that discussion.
Yep.
866-90-RED-I.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Coming up following the top of the hour, you won't want to miss it. James Carville says, Biden, go away. Don't forget to download our Red Eye Radio app. You can listen to our podcast after our show's over. It becomes our podcast. And if you're listening Central Time, starts at 5 a.m. Eastern Time, 6 a.m. I got the AM and PM right this time.
That's true.
And if during the show you can't listen to one of our great radio stations that carries us, we stream our show live all 5 hours.
That's right.
You can hear it. So,
right.
I was talking about how, as Republicans and conservatives, we argue with each other all the time. A lot of time it's around the fringe stuff. Like yesterday, conservatives were up in arms at J.D. Vance is giving Face the Nation his first interview. And I'm like, well, why would he do that to the enemy? Because that's why Trump picked him.
Right. Exactly. He's unafraid.
Yeah.
Right.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.